Mr. Mashaba, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. There are a number of resolutions that came out of that interim Senate meeting this past weekend, and we'll go through some of those in a short while. I want to get your thoughts first on former Gauteng DA provincial leader John Moodey joining your political organization. He's already appointed as chair of your party in the province. How are you feeling about him joining?
I think, fortunate enough, Clement, I had an opportunity to work with Mr. Moodey over 4 years. First year in 2016 during the campaign period. Actually, I worked with him more than anyone else within the DA structure, so I reasonably know him. And he was one of the most supportive of my programs in the city of Johannesburg. So when I learned of his departure from the DA, I'm sure you must have noticed, I think a few days or a week or so after leaving the DA, invited him home for tea, and we had a very constructive engagements where he was obviously looking at other options. And I said to him, John, our country is on fire, our country is collapsing, and running away cannot really be an option. And I think someone like you would really be a loss to society. And fortunately enough, John accepted our proposal to continue saving the country.
Your party is starting to look like the grouping of the wounded, so to speak. Are you not worried about the shape the party is taking in terms of its leadership? You have a number of former DA leaders who are holding some critical positions in the party.
I think to be fair, Clement, I'm sure you're aware the People's Dialogue was the founding principle of how this party came about. It was not a party started on the basis of an ambition to start a political party. When I announced my resignation from the DA and the mayoralty of the city of Johannesburg, there was an outcry. And I wanted to engage South Africans to see whether I've got the support, firstly, and secondly, to see if South Africans and I share the same values. So we engaged, and I think we engaged South Africans, listened to them. And in terms of the leadership, that is actually quite required. South Africans and people who engaged us, really very positive about the people that we bring them into our organization, because I don't just really wake up and bring these people in. I engage the structures. I engaged our people to make sure that we just don't obviously lose some of these good South Africans, because that does not mean everyone who comes from other political parties were rotten. I mean, if you take Vytjie and Makhosi, these were brave women that I think, for me, fighting corruption, corruption that has destroyed this country. So, I mean, John, honestly, is really one of those great South Africans I've got high regard and admiration for.
Well, so some people may argue that there's a credibility issue with some of these leaders. You've mentioned John Moodey. He was accused of leaving the DA under a cloud. The DA says he was about to face some serious charges. He says the charges were trumped up, but we really don't know. You also have people like Vytjie that you mentioned, whose credibility was brought to tatters at the state capture inquiry. She wasn't much of a credible witness, I'm sure you've seen. And now she's your chairperson in the Western Cape. Paul Bowie is another one, resigning from the DA after the party's dismal showing at the polls. And there was a recommendation that he steps down. Even the former Gauteng Police Commissioner, Deliwe Delange, she was brought to court for being part of an alleged elaborate fraud scheme. Are you not worried about these characters and what has happened around them that has started to question their credibility?
Very interesting point you are raising, Clement. I think, please just look at, investigate, do some research to really look at how many times have I been accused. I mean, ever since I took a decision, a political decision, to really fight to save my country, please just look at how many times I'm being accused on all manner of things. So obviously, if anyone has got to really be accused of whatever people are accusing us of, I think they've got to really start with me. the only unfortunate part about South Africa and our country is the collapse of our criminal justice system. So it's easy for anyone to start accusing the people of anything and without having the results. And that's the reason why one of the resolutions we took over the weekend is to really pursue this private prosecution route, where you will see soon we will have to really ensure that we free up our criminal justice system. We cannot live in a society where we accuse people of corruption and fraud and ill-doing, and there are no consequences. So basically, if ever Herman Mashaba has has committed crime, Herman Mashaba must face the consequences, and that's why we're calling on South Africans. If we want to destroy this country, is destroy the criminal justice system, and we can't work on the basis of people being accused. And fortunate enough, before we invite and I work with people, I make sure that I think one does his homework to see what is it that they're being accused of.
But in some cases, Mr. Mashaba, it's not just the accusations. I'm saying take Vytjie Mentor, for instance. Her credibility at the State Capture Commission, I mean, she wasn't a credible witness. I'm sure you've seen that, and how the Commission has almost cautiously taken her testimony. Did that not concern you at all?
I think, but tell me, do we take Vytjie, but really look at her track record in fighting and exposing the corruption of government. And I think those things cannot just really be disregarded. I think people like her who demonstrated under difficult circumstances, she had a lot to really lose. And that's something that must really be celebrated. Because at the end of the day, Clement, people are going to criticize you for taking a position. So I think let people rather criticize us doing something than really criticizing us for not doing anything. I'm not really prepared to sit back and watch my country being destroyed like Zimbabwe and want to complain thereafter. I think those who want to criticize us, they will criticize us because we're a real serious threat to the current establishment.
And that's where I want to come in.
And I'm happy for them to keep criticizing us.
All right. I want to talk quickly some of the resolutions that came out of that meeting over the weekend. What position has the meeting resolved on when it comes to immigration? I saw some people reacting and accusing you of abandoning your tough and blunt stance on immigration and the promises that you made while you were starting this party.
Well, Clement, fortunately enough, people think we're stupid or we're crazy. You remember, since the 1st of December 2016, when I was reporting on my 100 days of my administration. That's when I started addressing this matter and address it head on, including today. Remember when I raised it, I was even reported to the Human Rights Commission, and fortunately enough, the Human Rights Commission did their own homework, because I've always been for the rule of law. South Africa is a sovereign country with borders. So who's the problem here? Are these foreign nationals? There's a reason why, at the end of the day, African diaspora. Remember, I had a press conference on the day when the Human Rights Commission released that report and got us to engage, where I promised them, and I was not negotiating, and I said the problem is Home Affairs, and us as the city of Johannesburg, we're going to really take this matter legally, force them to get the cost to force them to do the work, including African diaspora actually saying there will be the friends of the city of Johannesburg in this, because I was not only fighting to get the foreign nationals, I was fighting, and I'm still fighting, to make sure that Home Affairs does what they're supposed to do. People who are undocumented, are here for wrong reasons, and they don't qualify to be in South Africa, they must really leave our country. But we must do it within the law. I mean, if I changed, please look at, you can really do your research from that time. Now we've got the Jimmy come late with some agendas of parties that are part of the functions of the ruling party that wants me to be part of them. And unfortunately, Clement, I wasn't really born yesterday. The people who are unleashing this attack, they're just there to disrupt. They started by people who are in the ruling party as a faction to create confusion among South Africans. So remember, some of these people were trained by the KGB. And one thing for sure is part of my liking of reading is to look at how KGB train those people to destabilize. So they are specialists at that. Unfortunately enough, some of us are not fast asleep. Yeah. That is why I refuse openly to associate with them.
Yeah, I think some people will say you're starting to sound like former President Jacob Zuma there, Mr. Mashaba. Let me ask you. Let me ask you this quick last question. We have an economy that is struggling. It's been struggling even before lockdown, and now it's just worse. Millions of people are without jobs. Government is trying to come up with a plan to kickstart the economy. What are your proposals as ActionSA? What should be done to create job opportunities and grow the economy?
Let me tell you something, Clement and people of South Africa. For as long as we've got the tripartite alliance with the unions actually having a veto over the governing party's economic policies, this country will not go anywhere. That is why I made it really very clear. For us as ActionSA, Labour has got a very important role to play, but Labour will not veto our economic policies because it's critical. That's a starting point, because I've experienced over the last 26 years of democracy how Labour has destroyed small businesses, particularly small black businesses who do not really have the resources and the capacity to take them on. They went around closing one factory after the other. Right now, we're sitting with abandoned derelict factories in Amanskral, in Harankua, Twatwa, and everywhere else. These are state resources lying empty. And you go to Amanskral, you go to Twatwa, up to 80% unemployment rate, with factories that are lying empty, threatening to close them down. And obviously the ruling party can't do anything because for them, the COSATU in particular, they need their support. They don't realize that COSATU does not have the support any longer because we've got family members who are members of this trade union who, the last 10, 15 years, their jobs were destroyed. When I grew up, people who did not work are those who did not want to work. Today, 80% of our people in some of these areas are not employed. We've got this open borders. We've got to close our borders, only bring in people who can add value to South Africa, not to really come and compete with South Africans to run spaza shops and be in restaurants and so forth. So these are issues that we need to really confront and confront them head on. All
right. Mr. Mashaba, I really appreciate your time on ENCA this evening. Herman Mashaba is the president of ActionSA.